Thank you, Dom, for a wonderful speech. Hello, everyone. My name is Christine Hu, and I am the four-timer House Class Representative. It is my pleasure to introduce Julie Zauzmer, someone who I've gotten to know over the years on so many levels from living in FOHO together. Julie was the managing editor of The Crimson in 2012. She makes balloon art and ran Harvard's charitable clown club, Class Clowns, for 3 years. One of her Crimson stories, about a man who faked his way into Harvard, led her the opportunity to write a book called Conning Harvard that was published in last September. But most importantly, Julie is a great friend. From big projects such as making a giant polar bear centerpiece for our master's farewell celebration, to offering friendly advice over our house open email lists, Julie truly demonstrates what it means to be a wonderful housemate. Let's give a warm welcome to Julie.
I know you all got all dressed up or traveled long distances to come to Harvard Yard this week for a graduation, but I have to break some news to you. This isn't graduation. Graduation already happened. In fact, it happened many times over. It happened when the actors among us took their final bows after so many shows in the low becks. It happened when a dedicated scientist put down his last pipette and left the lab for good. It happened when a football player completed his last forward pass. It happened on a whole lot of thesis deadlines. There's a sting to a graduation. It comes when you snap that rubber band that's tied your feet and your brain and eventually your heart to a place for so many years. That hurts. That kind of graduation will happen many times tomorrow night when we give one last hug to a roommate, realizing that someone who's gone from perfect stranger to true family in 4 years will forevermore be sleeping across the country or across the world instead of just across your N+1 suite. That's what graduation feels like. For me, one graduation happened back in December as I stood in the basement of the Harvard Crimson, staring at the presses that print our newspaper every day. I'd stood there many a time before, whenever a night of editing passed and the dawn found me still sitting at my desk. I'd always hear a tinny bell and a rumble below me that drew me downstairs to watch the presses start spitting out paper after paper. I'd revel in the fact that I had made something that day, something tangible, something that maybe had the power to change this place sometimes. Then, that night of graduation in December, my fellow Crimson staffers and I gathered to watch the ceremonial printing of the last issue of our year as editors. Once again, I heard that tinny bell and that rumble, and as the paper started racing through the ink rollers, I started to cry. I won't cry today or tomorrow, because that sting of graduation doesn't really happen at a ceremony. It's been happening all over this campus, in public and in private, for every one of us. There have been so many graduations. But there's only one commencement. Before this week, our class was all together on just one other day in our 4 years at Harvard. As we've been reminded today, our class was the first in Harvard's history to ever have a freshman convocation ceremony. We were new then to this intimidating Neo-Georgian place. We sat in these same folding chairs in Tercentenary Theater. We heard an incredible message. These might not have been exactly the words we heard, but the point was, this place is yours now. Ready, set, go. And we went. We occupied the classrooms, and we occupied the playing fields, and for a while, we even occupied the yard. Harvard offered us a multitude of stages, and we all found our places to dance here. We stumbled through the steps at first, sometimes painfully, but we found our way to the limelight at last. Now, all those curtains have closed on us. Each curtain call meant another graduation. And wherever our paths have veered, each one led us back to these same folding chairs in Tercentenary Theater, where again we gather to mark not a graduation, but a beginning, a commencement. I don't know where all of you are going on the journey that begins now, but I hope the paths you take on your way there are just as fulfilling and just as all-consuming and just as varied as the paths you took as you bounded through the halls of Harvard. Because the world needs people who put the same energy into preventing climate change or writing legislation that I've seen you put into writing papers or planning HOCO events. The world needs people who've stayed up all night on a homeless shelter shift or woken up before sunrise to get to practice when it comes time for overnight rounds at a hospital or the morning news on local TV. If you've set foot in the Office of Career Services this year, you might have come to the conclusion that what the world needs is a whole lot of consultants and investment bankers, and that's sort of true, but that's not the whole truth. And the whole truth isn't just that we need teachers and researchers and veterinarians too, and bakers and cellists and auctioneers. It's not that easy. Real life isn't going to be just about what you do. It's about the steps you take, about the moments when you know you're not just listening to someone else's tune, you're dancing to your own music. Here's what the world needs. People who know how to arrive at a place that's huge and complicated and scary, a place like Harvard, and then make it their own. And that means every single one of us. We found our stages here, and we've graduated from them. Now, in the huge, complicated, scary nation and world, there are big stages out there waiting. And I know just the people to dance on all of them. Put on your dancing shoes, Harvard class of 2013. This is a beginning, and I know what happened the last time we all commenced something together. We took on the challenge, we learned the steps, even if we often faltered, and eventually, we achieved some pretty incredible graduations. As new curtains open now, I know we've got what it takes to find our way to the most meaningful of spotlights. Do you hear your music starting? Okay, ready, set, go.